This is a loosely coupled show with James Hickey and Comartin. If you're new to this channel, we chat about software architecture and design. Make sure to subscribe to get all our latest episodes. If you have a suggestion for a topic or a guest, make sure to let us know in the comments. Yeah, I mean, 20 years ago, things aren't that different. They are in a lot of respects, and they aren't in some respects. And I know that I think you've mentioned this before on Twitter, or people have in general, is just, I mean, like I feel like there's been this constant reinvention of the wheel. And I get that you need to reinvent the wheel to make it better. However, I feel like there's some circumstances that reinventing the wheel, it's almost exactly the same wheel that came out of the reinvention. Like, it's still a wheel, right? Like it's still a wheel. Maybe shaped a little bit different. You know what I mean? It's not a square wheel. Maybe it's a triangle wheel now. Like it's not that much different. Now, the reason I say that is because if you look at, I don't know what, I don't want to poo-poo like certain frameworks or whatever, but I'm about to. So, and the reason is because I don't think there's going to be too many people angry with me. Is when AngularJS came out, that became incredibly popular. I don't think there's any denying how popular AngularJS was 5-6 years ago. Yeah. Right? It's not that long ago. It is one of the most, if you look at Stack Overflows, it's like the most despised or hated, I don't know what the wording is, framework. It's like way up there. And I probably filled out the survey, and yes, it would have been my most despised. I despise it beyond belief. I despised it from the beginning. However, because I'm not so much of a front end person, and like my, I guess, devotion of attention isn't primarily there. It's more on other things in terms of like front end frameworks and what's going on in the web dev client side world. It was one of those things where when I started using it at the very beginning, I was like, this is wrong. This is wrong on so many different levels. And we could we could do this, and I could give you perfect examples.
I can guess if I had to guess. Yeah.
So
if you have controllers and your client side code, maybe there's a problem there.
Well, like just
the name, you know what I mean? Like, because you think controllers.
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of weird things that really bother me with it, but at the time, I thought to myself, you know what? You're old man Derek now. You're the old guy that's been in this too long, and you can't adjust to the changing tide of where this is going, right? You need to get on board, old man. Stop saying get off my lawn, because that's what I felt like. I felt like this is me being out of touch, and instead of knowing what I knew and how I felt about it, I just like, this is super popular. What am I clearly am missing something. Yeah. And since that moment, I've realized that just because something is very popular, and this is obviously easy in hindsight, but just because it's super popular does not make it right in any sense. And I have my beliefs on why I think it became really popular. I think a little bit of it is the blind leading the blind. Is people not having that much background into how things work otherwise. And if you're just getting into it and you're like, this is just how it's done. So where we were going to the first part of this, on our other conversation, the one we were just doing right now, but of convenience, is I think that's what it is. So when we were talking about like you being concerning yourself with dependencies, and like in the NPM world, it's just you can't really be concerned with them because there's so many of them, because there is no BCL. Is I don't think it's because people don't care. It's because that's just the way it is. Yeah. Right. Like it's that. So if I'm correlating this to AngularJS is that if people are, hey, this is popular and that's just the way it is, and I'm going to start using it, and people like, and you're somebody like me that had some background way before that thinking this is a tire fire, but it's like I didn't put enough faith in my own, I don't know, opinion.
Yeah.
That I'm just like, oh,
You've used jQuery enough to realize that having yet another framework that's reaching into your DOM and like,
yeah,
it's kind of like there's
so
something weird with that, right? Like,
yeah, it's just the conventions of how it worked is what really bothered me, and how difficult it was to debug bothered me. And at that time too, like I thought in a larger scale app that you'd be writing something with AngularJS. TypeScript, when TypeScript was, it was very difficult to use the two together.
Yeah.
And I call it like string obsession. There's so many things that are done with strings in AngularJS that one typo can make you pull out your hair for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Because of a string. It's like, hey, let's use types. I don't know, but TypeScript, and it just didn't really fit that well to me.
And then you're in code review and you're like, stop hard coding stuff. And then the other person's like, this, I can't, this is how you do it.
But it's one of those things where it's just, that's the way it is. So people just get on board to just, that's the way it is. And like, how do we even get into that place where like that was a thing? I don't know. And I guess that's where I'm going with it, is I don't necessarily know that where I was saying like things have gotten better. I don't know if they have, because a perfect example of this. So Basecamp came out with their new mail service called Hey. And my Twitter feed last week was blown up on how awesome it is, because it's pretty much all server-side rendering.
Yeah.
And I wanted to like run through a wall thinking to myself, like, do you know what I mean? Like, we've come full circle again. And
that's like, why you're in a different room right now.
Yes.
Smashed a hole through your wall.
Yeah, because I blew out. I just pulled out the old Kool-Aid guy and just ran through a wall. Because I'm like, how have we come full circle now where people are realizing that we jump way too far to one end? Like, how do we not realize that going from full server side to full client side was going to be an awesome idea?
Yeah, and I think it was all in the name of like user interactivity. I think But
the thing is like, and guess where we're going to end up landing? We're going to end up landing somewhere in the middle at some point, which is where we should have been in the first place. That anybody anybody would have known this. Like, we were kind of doing it a little bit in the knockout world. You'd basically create individual pages that were interactive, that were loaded from the server. But then we went this full bore, like all at the end spa. And then guess what we ended up doing? We ended up like, well, this startup time's really low. So we're going to do like this partial load on the server that gets the initial state. It's like, what? Like, we were doing this before. You're just doing it a different way. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know whether reinventing the wheel has been reinventing the wheel in a lot of places. Right? Like, however, so that sense, I don't think so at all. On the other side of it, when I was mentioning kind of like the operational deployment side, I don't even want to use the word DevOps because I'll start ranting on that. But I think that has actually come a long way. I was making fun of it, saying, hey, I could have a shell script 20 years ago that did this. But I think tooling has made it easier to get everybody on board to do that.
Yeah.
And to have builds, to have a deployment process. However, again, it's like, think about what you simply could have been doing 20 years ago. Is it really that different than what I'm doing today? I think about like my build process now versus what it was 20 years ago, and thinking like 20 years from here to here, it's like, it's improved, but has it really improved? I mean,
I think the biggest benefit is like the on-demand portion of cloud computing.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Like infrastructure, all that stuff. Absolutely, for sure.
But like you're saying, the process to actually, okay, now I have my own stuff. How do I get that up somewhere? That part, I agree. Like I remember when I was probably 2 years into my career, which it goes back to the open source project that I have, Coravell. I started toying around with the PHP framework, Laravel, which is super cool, like awesome framework, which is inspired a lot of things that I wanted to see in .NET Core that weren't there. So that's kind of why I played around with that stuff. But yeah, like even then it's just PHP, and it's like I when I was playing around with it, I had literally just had this like this script that would kind of what you're talking about. It would just I would type in a command and it would SSH into my server. It would FTP safely my project over to the server, and then it would like build it, and then it would like change the configuration files to like whatever it needed to be, and would run migrations on the database, and then boop, I'm up and running. Like, so like, okay, I changed some code, and then I just need to do one line of like a one-liner in my command line, and it's up on my server, and like super easy peasy, right? And, like that. Yeah, I guess that comes back to things like with what I didn't like about .NET at the time, .NET Framework, is you couldn't do that. Well, you could, but it was a lot harder to do.
Yeah.
Because then you'd have to start tinkering with like, yeah, because you've got PHP is just a scripting language, so you put the files on the server and it works, right? But .NET, you need to compile it and all that stuff and push the binaries into a certain spot. And IIS, a whole other issue, but yeah, I can see that. I think I can see for larger organizations like things around like approving certain deployments or whatever. But even the automation of like continuous deployment, you could automate that with scripts too. So like there are ways.
I mean, it's just taking what people would have scripted out manually, packaging it up and commoditizing it a little bit into services. And I'm all for this. I'm not like, again, I feel like I'm like old man Derek here. Like, oh, we got to do this. But it's kind of true. I just think about like 20 years is a long time. And I think about like, I don't know, it just doesn't feel like that much of an advancement in that respect. Yeah. You alluded to it, which I think is a giant one, is just the cloud. Like I think about, we were talking about this morning about AWS has the GA'd RDS proxy. So it allows you to have a proxy in front of RDS. So like Postgres, MySQL, whatever, SQL Server. And I was just talking about how RDS works, their Aurora, or Aurora even serverless. And that crap is mind blowing to me because I used to deal a lot with MySQL and replication and primary, or, you know what I mean? Primary read replicas and dealing with all that stuff. And that is so abstracted from you now in the AWS world with RDS and Aurora. It is, wow. Like that is innovation.
That saves you so much time for like a legitimate thing that like the trade-off is your time, and you don't like have this other like bag of cruft as a side effect, right?
Yeah, I think of all that stuff. I even think of like again, I'm an AWS user, but so I'm assuming all this stuff is in Azure as well as just like thinking about simple things like, so yeah, in RDS, that's all amazing in Aurora, but just deployment, scalability, like in their auto scaling for something like Elastic Beanstalk. So many simple things that are services now that are like all our VPN into our VPC. There's no VM. I don't manage any of it, right? Yeah. It's just, here's this instance, which I don't really even see. It's just our VPC instance or VPN instance, and all stuff like our load balancer. I don't have to manage any of this stuff. I just manage the rules. I don't have to manage like the actual software that's running. Like no longer am I dealing with any of that stuff. And you're paying for it. Yeah. But to me, all that stuff managed and it being redundant, it's glorious. So if you're saying like, okay, I'm getting off my old man mode here, that things aren't getting better, that has gotten better enormously.
Yeah.
For me.
But then you push up your Node.js server app that you built, and it's like a gig because of
Yeah, no, I'm
like
with
the other
you.
side.
I'm with you.
I'm
Yeah.
just joking.
Yeah. So I think things have gotten better, but
There's
in
improvement.
some
There's
ways,
room for improvement.
yeah. Yeah. What
But I think Node was like, yeah. I mean, Node is like, it's been around for quite a while now. There's this new thing, Dino, which I don't really know
Mhm.
that much about. But I can see the need for a shift in something like Node that's maybe, yeah, it's like Angular JS, like you're talking about. Angular JS was maybe not, a lot of design flaws in retrospect. And now they've made improvements. Well, I mean, whatever. Just look at all the like, I want to say newer front end frameworks.
Yeah.
But like React, for example, is very, I'm gonna say lightweight. But as far as like what it does, I mean, kind of the core of it, it just renders JSON. Um, but yeah, I can see the need in that space for something that's Node.js light, I guess, or Node.js refined. I don't know what you would call it, but yeah, I mean, I think maybe it's because yeah, maybe it goes back to this idea of reinventing the wheel.
I,
It's,
I think you
it's
need
like,
to. It's just
yeah,
like how much are we improving it over time? Like it just feels like it
yeah,
to me it's not as significant. And sometimes like with the Angular JS mentioning is that the problem with it is yes, that had to happen. Like you said, that Angular JS had to happen in order to come out with like Vue, React, and Angular 87, whatever it is now. Like that had to happen in order for these ones to be where they are.
yeah.
So you could say, yeah. So I mean, we had this reinvention
We've
of the wheel, and
learned like
we
in a
it
way.
learned and we worked. But I just feel like I don't even know if where we're at is where we should have been to begin with. Like
Yeah,
I don't think the reinvention should have been, hey, let's go from full server side to full SPA client side, and then let's have all these apps that are unmaintainable in Angular JS, and that be the cost,
yeah.
right? Like it's
It's funny because somebody contacted me last week, a VP of engineering who just wanted to get kind of my input, and that's basically like it's exactly what he's dealing with. Is they've got they've got this platform where it was all written in Angular JS, hard to maintain, like hard. Just the client side is hard to maintain. They have other issues and um, but yeah, it's funny because it's like I had someone contact me last week. We chatted for like 45 minutes, just kind of giving him feedback, and it's like that's one of the drivers. Like, yeah, it's just really hard to deal with that. Just all that, I guess, extra stuff that Angular brings. When it's like you just need to render a table of information or render a form or whatever, right? Like how many apps really need all like super fancy user interaction? At least the ones that I see that are using a lot of these front-end frameworks don't really need that fancy stuff, or you just use CSS to make it look nice, right? Like,
yeah,
but
good times. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Loosely Coupled Show. If you did, please subscribe for more on software architecture and design.